Hey, Chris.
What's up, Rock?
How would you kind of describe what that feeling was like in the ballpark today and in the clubhouse with how different things are now?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot different look with the social distancing and then everybody having masks on and all that stuff. But once the game started, or once the action started, I should say, it felt pretty normal. I mean, we had live BP and kind of a simulated game today, and it felt pretty normal once we got out on the field. It's going to be different. There's some hand washing stations on the field, which is kind of weird, but it's definitely good to be back and just good to be around the guys.
Rich?
Hey, Chris. Chris, how you doing? Did you have, was there any thought at all from you about opting out? And was there any thought from any of your teammates about opting out?
I can't speak for my teammates. We haven't really talked about that, but for me, there was, unless I was going to be a high-risk guy, there was no thought of opting out. I mean, I felt like I was off to a good start during the first spring training, and I felt like I was kind of headed in the right direction, and I wanted to see how that played out. And then after the way things kind of went down over the last few months with negotiations and all that stuff, I was ready to get back out on the field and ready to start playing again. Tired of hitting in the cage, tired of working out in the garage at home, just ready to start the season, however many games that may be.
John?
How's it going, Chris? Thanks for doing this. You mentioned those negotiations. I'm sure you were really involved in kind of bringing information back to your teammates. You guys are a pretty young team. It's a pretty unique position for people to be in. I mean, what was the tenor of what you were hearing from your teammates as they're reading all the same stuff we are and trying to figure out if the season's going to happen? How were they regarding everything that was going on, and how did you regard it?
They were great. Honestly, I felt like guys were very attentive. I felt like they were paying attention to what was going on, and they were really staying ready as best they could with so many unknowns, with so many things that we weren't sure how it was going to play out. We weren't sure what it was going to look like if we came back. I thought they did a great job of really staying in contact with each other. And then also, you know, we had a chance to get together a few times over Zoom calls or just kind of random group discussions with any information that I could give those guys. I mean, it was a tough position to be in because I felt like there was so much waiting and so many unknowns. But I was really proud of the way that our team, especially the fact that, like you said, we're such a young clubhouse. For those guys to really pay attention the way that they did and stay in tune and not check out, it's a tribute to them.
Dan?
Hey, Chris, thanks for doing this. Some of your union brethren have talked about the concerns about this getting all the way through, getting through 60 games. Where is the level of concern with you on that? And really the rest of the Orioles, have they expressed that to you as well?
Right now, I think it's so new, it's so fresh. Obviously, with the mass group of guys that's going to be tested day in and day out, you're going to have some positives. I think that's something that we expected. But as far as my level of concern, I don't really know right now. I think it's too new. I'm glad that we're attempting to play 60 games and trying to get in as many as we can. It's just going to be tough to navigate this whole thing with the virus spiking in certain places throughout the country. It's going to be kind of touch and feel for the first few weeks, if not the whole time. But like I said, I'm excited that we're at least giving it a shot, and we're going to try to play some games.
Steve?
Chris, a similar question to Dan. As you've reviewed the protocols, what do you think will be some of the biggest challenges for players? And also, is there kind of almost pressure on players to make sure they, you know, do the right thing and help keep their whole team healthy?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that even Hyder and I talked about earlier today. It's really going to come down to the guys. I mean, there's no doubt that our training staff and the Orioles organization has done an outstanding job of implementing the social distancing, putting up barriers between us and the fans, and obviously we're not going to have fans at the games, but just making sure that it's a safe and secure environment for us and that it's a clean environment for us. But there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of accountability on the players' part to make sure that we're following these protocols, that we're staying within these guidelines, and that we're helping each other out. So, I mean, if you happen to get the virus and you're doing everything the right way, that's one thing. But if you're doing things that, you shouldn't be doing and you get sick, then you're going to have to answer to a clubhouse full of guys.
Todd?
Chris, what you have going on during the downtime? Did you have a batting cage or anything at home? What you work on? What were you able to do?
I did pretty much everything with the exception of playing full games. So when I got back, we went back to Texas after we found out that the Sarasota complex was going to be shut down, and I was able to hit with a guy that owns the facility that I hit at, and it was basically me and him and two other guys, and we respected the social distancing. We made sure that the facility was actually shut down for several weeks, and then we made sure that we were keeping safe distance. I would basically do my routine, do all my cage stuff, and my guy would come in and throw, and then the other two guys would pick up the balls after I was done, and then I was working out of my home in my gym at home in my garage, which is what I did all off season. So it was a good move, I guess, to put the gym in the garage this off season. But and then about 6 weeks ago, we started having live at bats. So there's a ton of guys in the Dallas-Fort Worth area where I live in the off season, and we basically just got together and started playing little pickup sandlot games and throwing live bullpens and stuff like that. So I've had a lot of baseball activity over the past few months, even though we haven't been able to have full-on games.
Gabe?
Yeah, Chris, there's so much in the protocols, 100+ pages of what to do to play, but there's not a whole lot in there about how to shut this down when it's an appropriate point in time to maybe back off a bit. Is there concern among the player population about that, or do you guys feel pretty confident that, if things just get untenable, that you'll be able to step away as needed?
I think guys are pretty confident right now, seeing the measures that teams have taken to provide a safe environment and to educate the players. Obviously, like you said, it's a 100+ page document. It's got a lot of wordage in there and a lot of verbiage over what to do, what not to do, kind of some guidelines and helpful tips. But I think we're just going to have to kind of play it by ear. I don't think it's reasonable to think that guys just aren't going to test positive. I mean, it's going to happen when you have this many people from as many different areas of the country and even international coming together. It's going to happen. But I think as long as we don't see a large spike and everybody's kind of managing it responsibly, I think we're going to be all right.
Joe?
Hey, Chris. How's it going? Sorry, I never know if I'm going to mute myself or if I'm going to be muted.
No, you're good.
I know you touched on it a little earlier, but just what was your day like today in terms of workflow? For someone who wasn't there, saw a picture of you taking a live at bat. What else did you do, from the time you walked into the ballpark to the time you walked out?
Yeah, so we went through our intake screening, which is basically the temperature check and just a few things that we have to do as far as coronavirus is concerned. And then we went through our physicals. Then we did some live BPs. We were on the field actually a good bit of the time. Took ground balls, took BP, went over base running, was able to work out. It was pretty much a full day and a normal day for the most part, obviously with the mask in hand every time we're in the clubhouse and making sure that we're washing our hands and cleaning everything. It's just a little bit more work, I think, throughout the day. But, for the most part, I felt like it was a pretty normal day.
Jeff?
Hey, Chris, thanks for doing this.
Who are some of the guys that you got to take some live BP against while you were back at home?
Derek Holland, Brandon Workman, Colton Brewer, Kevin McCarthy, Brett Rogers, Colby Milner. There were a few other guys in there, but there were a lot of big league guys around the area that came out to throw and, wanted to face guys in live BP or throwing bullpens. I was more leaning towards the live BP as opposed to just standing there tracking a guy. But we had Ryan Presley from the Astros, Alex Claudio, John Curtis. There were a bunch of guys that came out, and really was awesome just to see how the players kind of stuck together through a tough time and how we kind of helped each other out, getting swings in, getting at-bats in, getting bullpens in, and doing all that stuff. I was definitely proud to be a part of the union and part of the players group together.
John?
Chris, you're at a different stage in your career now than a lot of the guys on the team, but you have been in that position of, being a guy who's trying to solidify himself as a big leaguer and, ensure that this is going to be your career for a long time. Can you put yourself in the position of a lot of your teammates right now and how they're going to be able to make that case for themselves and in what could be a make or break year under these circumstances?
Well, I think it's such a different scenario than anybody could have ever imagined. It's just a different set of circumstances. And to think that guys would be judged solely off of 60 games, especially under these conditions, to me, it seems a little far-fetched. But at the same time, as a younger player, you want to make your mark anytime that you get the opportunity. It's definitely a tall task, but to be honest with you, I was encouraged by the way the guys showed up today. Our pitchers looked like they had been on their throwing program. They looked like they had been doing things to keep their stuff fresh and to keep their arms fresh. And some of our position players, I got to see some of the guys take BP. I felt like everybody looked sharp. They looked like they didn't take any time off, like they took advantage of whatever avenue they had at, whether it was at home, whether they were in Sarasota, whatever it was. It looked like guys were serious about their business and didn't slack off. And so it was, it was nice to see that.
Dan?
Chris, you touched on this in the very beginning, but you've obviously had some strange or unique experiences in your career, whether it's no fans game, hitting 50 homers, winning a game on the mound, 19 innings in one game, that kind of stuff. How did today compare in the weirdness factor for you? And also, when you went out there, you had mentioned about the hand sanitizer stations. Was there anything else that kind of struck you today that was really kind of off kilter?
Yeah, to answer your first question, this is definitely the most odd, just random, weirdest thing that I've ever encountered on a baseball field. I think it's going to start to feel more normal the longer we are under kind of all these protocols and guidelines. And that's kind of my hope, is that we develop some sort of routine to where this becomes our normal for the time being. But as far as just the setup of everything, I tried to kind of give myself a little bit of a preview or think of what it would look like and tried to envision that before I came in. But I just think it's so much different than I even imagined it. It just the little details that our training staff has thought of to go through to make sure that we have hand washing stations, sanitized everything, personalized everything to make sure that guys aren't swapping germs or anything like that. It's a tribute to them and how hard they work and how much time they spent. But I think probably the weirdest thing for me is going to be throwing the balls out in between innings or even in between, just warming guys up and stuff like that. I think there's going to be like a recycling ball station on the field where we'll toss it and they'll throw it in a bucket or something like that. And that, to me, is going to be the hardest or the biggest adjustment, just the attention to detail of not sharing a ball too much, if that makes any sense.